Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this hybrid meeting of the Communities Committee. I'd like to remind all the attendees that the meeting has been recorded and webcast live on the Council's YouTube channel. I've agreed the attendance of some of our members remotely and would remind all remote attendees to mute their microphones when not speaking. And for any of the members of public watching, please note that the committee papers are all online. They're on the Council's website, so you can check them out to see what we're discussing today. Elaine, have we got any apologies or substitutes?
There are no apologies or substitutions, Convener.
Okay, moving on to members. Any declarations of interest or statements of transparency? Okay, don't see any. We're at agenda item 3, the minutes of the previous meeting. Do we submit for approval the correct record?
Agreed.
Excellent. So we've received a request to speak from Mr Leask Mackey in relation to item 4, the petition to speed reduction A935 for Wylow Farm cottages. Mr Mackey is requesting signs to slow the road down and lighting to be installed at the bus stop. Do members agree to the request?
Agreed.
Thank you, everyone. So we move on to agenda item 4, and that's the petition speed reduction A935 for Wylow Farm cottages. Mr Mackey's in place. You've got 10 minutes. Like I said to you earlier, just take your time and start when you're ready.
Hello. My name's Leask, and this is my wife Lindsay. Thank you for letting us speak. Okay, I'll give you a quick history and background. So the farm was on the Montrose Brechin Road, and we've read the report, and we agree that the farm and the cottages don't meet the criteria for being a village, and we also realise that well, you can't slow the road down for singular dangerous situations like blind bends and things like that. But we believe that there are multiple hazards on this stretch of roads which aren't in the report. So the report says that special circumstances such as a church or school. So we'd like to highlight the such as part that's not shown on the report. Wylow Cottages is located in the middle of a working farm on the road A395 running through it, with a junction and the road that runs down to Bridge of Dun and the railway station. There are 2 drive safely signs at either end of the houses, and the distance of road between the signs is 550 metres. There are 13 houses, and the residents are a range of all walks of life. We've got old, young children, and a few people with disabilities. There is a working farm and a lot of farm buildings and machinery crossing the road. Okay, the first point, there's a football pitch. So there's a football pitch opposite the dwellings, and there's a road, and there's the road right down the middle of the farm that runs down past the other side of the football pitch. The football pitch has been there for over 50 years and is maintained by volunteers. There are changing facilities on the pitch. A local team trains twice a week, and there is a game on Saturday and Sunday. There can be 20 or 30 cars for a training session. So it's 20 or 30 cars twice a week, and sometimes up to 50 cars for a game at the weekend. So there'll be 2 teams, all the supporters and coaches. So you've got a lot of traffic in the area. Okay, that's the first point. The next point is the railway traffic. So down the side road is the turn off to the Caledonian Steam Railway. This can get very busy on Sundays with Thomas the Tank Engine. I don't know about the numbers, but a full train is a lot of people. There are a few trains a day. Down there they have a couple of large car parks. Not everybody gets on at Bridge of Dun, some are on at Brechin, but there are coaches that take customers from there up to House of Dun. This is 1 kilometre down the road, and it's a bit busier than usual because the bridge is still closed, crossing the South Esk with the storms. Okay, the next point, the working farm. There are 7 field, track and road entrances along the A935 at this stretch of road, between the 550 metres. They're not including the cottage driveways, so 7 field, track and road entrances. There's an old track road that goes up through the farm all the way up to Dunsdish. This is the main turn-off point up to the top part of the farm and is right in the middle of the cottages. Up here, there are about 12 fields, a good couple hundred acres, all with different arable crops. There's potatoes and peas get lifted with lorries and tractors, harvesters, turning up the road. Sometimes there could be a tractor every 50 minutes or so in the busy times, from 7 in the morning right through till 9 o'clock at night. There is a flower field also, and there can sometimes be 40 or 50 seasonal flower pickers and maybe 20 cars turning in and out at this junction. So this is the junction right in the middle of the cottages. There's tractors coming in and out. We also have a biomass plant at the cottages that needs topped up 2 or 3 times a week. So there's always like heavy machinery travelling along through the cottages on the busy road. We have sprayers, combines, tractors also doing their job on top of this, everything else that's going on here. Okay, the next point, bus, delivery, postie and bin lorry. There is a pavement along the front of the cottages, and cars and vans pull into the side. So when they pull into the side and they open the door, it's actually onto the road, and cars are coming along this road at like 60, 70 miles an hour. So the bus stop is on the other side of the road, and coming from Montrose towards Brechin. And when the bus pulls in, they go on the other side of the road, and it's a blind corner. So like, it's just, there's not much time from when people pull over, and this is what a lot of people are not happy about. There's a blind corner about 50 metres away on the opposite side of the road. A school bus also pulls into the front of the cottages, and there's a minibus for us, the stableman, and it pulls into the side as well. And obviously, he's at the side of the road, and he's trying to get in and out, and the cars are just 60, 70 miles an hour past. I've spoken to the posties and the bus drivers, and they feel it's very dangerous. They're in and out all the time along, and obviously it's full speed on the road. Next point, business and maintenance. I walked along and paced out yesterday some of the distances, and the speed of the lorries and cars nearly blew me off my feet. I don't know how someone can stand on the verge and wait for a bus with traffic at that speed. Most of the residents complain about the bus stop and the lighting. We usually dig the verge and let the water off in heavy rain, or clear the mud that is washed onto the road. We usually clear the ditch and empty the rubbish that's thrown out of the cars. But recently we've not managed to do this, as the road has become too fast, too busy and too dangerous. There's left a few large puddles across the road, making it even more dangerous. Accidents and incidents. I've had someone crash into the back of myself before while turning in. My brother's had an accident. He's had someone crash into the back of him in a tractor turning into. My mum had a crash there probably 20 years ago now. She was nearly killed at the top of the road turning in. There's other crashes. There's been 2 crashes at the bridge towards Brechin, and there's been a lorry off the road at Mainsadun, and there's also been a couple of cars into the field recently. There's been about 8 or 10 crashes on the road in the last year or so. Incidents. There are close shaves daily, blasting the horns, screeching the brakes, and dangerous overtaking. I think all the residents could speak of some close shaves turning in and out of their houses. Cars overtaking seem to be the biggest problem, along with vehicles pulling in and out of multiple entrances. Okay, I'll just say this. So picture the scene. So imagine you're at a football game with 50 cars there on a Sunday. Thomas the Tank Engine's going on a Sunday, so there's maybe 20 or 30 cars going to or coming away from there also. Imagine they're lifting potatoes coming out of the field also. So you've got tractors turning in, out, 50 cars on the football pitch, and maybe 50 cars down the road. Imagine now a bus comes along and he's trying to stop. You've got all these cars built up, you've got people coming past. Now imagine 2 cars trying to overtake on this, doing their 60 plus miles an hour. It gets a bit hairy. Now, a lot of this isn't covered in the report, it's just the average speeds, but this is actually day-to-day living, what we live with. This is why the residents want a speed reduction to help with some of the problems. It's been ongoing for about 15 years or so. We want the cheapest and quickest solutions, and we feel that a reduction in speed and some new signs put up would be probably the best route forward. Thanks. That's it.
Thank you very much, Mr Mackey. And we'll open it up to questions from the members now. It was a great presentation. I've got a specific one around your use of the bus stop. So obviously we've got the pavement down the house side of the houses, the cottages, and we've got the bus stop. You're talking about the one on the opposite side of the road, eh? Just remember your microphone if you respond. So when we're talking about the upgrade of the bus stop, you're talking about the one that's on the football pitch side. And I'm just wondering about the usage of it. So I think there was some confusion when I was speaking to officers about this, about how Balwillow residents use the bus stop. You're not standing on the pavement side and hailing the bus, then crossing the road. You're standing on the verge on the bus side. Is that correct?
Yes, if you're wanting to get the bus in towards Brechin, you've got to cross the road and stand on the verge. And yeah, the bus stop's there, and obviously there's the lorries coming at.
So when we're talking about potentially upgrading that bus stop, we're looking at that side of the road and getting some sort of standing area there that's safe for the residents and things like that. That was the original idea for the petition. Yeah, brilliant. Good stuff, thank you. Right, any other questions for the deputation? Okay, there's, Councillor Cowdery.
Sorry, I was a bit slow there. Yeah, could I have your view on what you would think if, hypothetically, a 40 or 50 mile an hour limit was put there instead? Would you feel that that was a step in the right direction or insufficient?
I think everybody would be, I think 50 is maybe a bit fast, because people would probably still drive at 60, but I think everyone would be happy if it was 40. It would be like sort of buffer zone, it would be great, yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Brace.
Yes, thanks for your presentation. I wondered, I'm very familiar with Balwillow Farm and with the football, having played there myself, believe it or not, and I think it was more than 50 years ago. And my daughter played there, and I know how busy it gets. Does anyone turn up using the bus?
No, not that I know of, no.
I didn't think so, but thanks for the clarification.
Thank you, Councillor Brace. I know historically some teams turned up on the bus, because I used to play there for 10 years. Is there any further questions for the deputation? Nope. Okay, well, thank you very much. Feel free to take your seat at the back, and like we mentioned earlier, you're free to leave the meeting at any time that you like, okay? Okay then, we move on then to the petition of the speed reduction. Graham, are you introducing the report?
Yes, and thank you, Convener. As members have just heard, this report advises regarding a petition received in connection with a request to reduce the speed limit from 60 miles per hour to 30 miles per hour on Balwillow Farm Cottages Road, and also to upgrade the bus stop on this road. Members are asked to note the options appraisal carried out by officers and presented in Appendix 4 of the report, and that we have reviewed this against the current policy that was previously agreed by the relevant Council Committee. It's recommended that no further action is taken at this time with regard to the speed limit. This takes into account the evidence and data that we have gathered on speeds and accidents at the location. Importantly, this also considers that we are undertaking the speed limit strategy review as agreed at a recent committee, and also that there is the national consultation ongoing regarding review of the national speed limits, which are relevant and could actually lead to a change in the speed limit at this location in all single carriageways across the whole of Scotland, not just Angus. It is also recommended that no further action is taken at this time regarding the upgrading of the bus stop However, the options will be reviewed following the conclusion of the speed limit strategy review, and also officers will seek feedback from local representatives on the preferred modifications to the bus stop. And just to emphasise that we will engage with local residents to try and determine exactly the modifications that are preferred to the bus stop, and if it is practical, if we could make these improvements if they are relatively straightforward. In the options appraisal, it goes into a lot of detail, but I think it would be helpful to engage directly with the local representatives to see if we could agree on practical steps that we can take. Thank you.
Thank you, Graham. So we open up to any questions. Any questions on the report? Councillor Duff.
Yeah, thanks, Convener. I probably got a couple of questions for Mr Daly. Have we got, or has anyone sought the views of Police Scotland on this one? Because clearly, if there are significant numbers of accidents, I would have thought that those would have been discussed between the police and the traffic team. So there's that question. The second question, and you may know where I'm coming with on this one, is there any possibility, and I can understand standing on that road waiting for a bus, and I know the location very well, must be not ideal, I think, let's put it that way. Is there any way we could actually move the bus stop in any way off the main road? I don't know whether it would be possible for the bus to come off the main road, pick up the passengers from a stop on the side road and then come back. I don't know, but that would solve some of the problems. Obviously we are doing the speed review right across Angus, but I just two thoughts that occurred there.
I'll answer each in turn, and also I have colleagues joining me online who will be able to assist. In terms of the first questions around the police consultation, also accident data. In terms of the accident data, I would refer you to the report, and we have presented in the report the actual accident data that we have gathered, and it does reference that the information we get from Police Scotland is where there has been injury, and that is what's recorded in there. In terms of consultation with the police, I will bring in my colleague Andy Barnes. I'm aware that we have a traffic coordination group where we meet with Police Scotland to discuss these requests, and if Andy could please come in and just expand on that.
Yeah, good afternoon, convener and members. Thanks, Graham. Yes, as Graham says, we do have a monthly meeting with Police Scotland, a traffic coordination group meeting. The specific inquiry is not being discussed as of yet, but that is something that we can do. Thanks.
And if just going on to the second part of the question is, can we move the bus stop off the road? I will bring in my colleague Ian Leith in a second, who could expand on this. But one thing I would highlight, and again it's in the report, is that at these locations there's circa 800 similar in Angus of these bus stops on the 60 mile an hour national speed limit roads. Very similar situations to this, and they are what we term hail and ride. And one thing that is quite unusual is that you've got the bus stop on the verge side. It is the case, I know that it was referenced that people stand on the verge. However, there is the option for persons to stand on the footpath and to hail the bus, and the bus will pull over. Our transport team leader Ian Leith is on the call, and Ian could perhaps speak a little bit further on that, and also Councillor Duff's query around if there are any other options about relocating the bus stop. I'll hand over to Ian.
Yeah, hi convener and members, and Graham, thanks for inviting me in. Yeah, we do have roughly another 800 similar types of infrastructure around rural bus routes in Angus. Most of them don't have any physical infrastructure, and they're designated as hail and ride areas. So a dwelling such as Barwilo normally wouldn't have a physical bus stop placed at it. Historically, there was a reason why this bus stop was placed, and we think it was around potentially passengers who had disabilities, and it sounds like the gentleman explains that they potentially stall access to public transport services. In terms of the bus pulling off the road, this is probably something that wouldn't be practical. Along the route, there would be numerous other locations that potentially this would be required to happen, and also buses wouldn't be able to reverse and turn in road ends, and that would create another road safety issue.
Thank you, Ian. Councillor Stewart.
Thanks, Convener. I do have a concern regarding people standing there safely waiting on buses. But my question is for Mr. Daly. I just want to be reminded of the speed limit strategy review. Are they looking at reducing the single carriageway roads to 50? Would I be right in saying that, or is it 40 that they're looking to bring that down to?
The consultation at the national level is looking at the option of reducing the national speed limit on single carriageway roads from 60 to 50, and also increasing it from 40 to 50 for vehicles over 7.5 tonnes. So it would be a 50 mile an hour speed limit if it was to go down that line.
To add on the back of that, though, Councillor Stewart, just to again address your question, though, the Angus Council speed limit review is separate to that. So there's been a member officer working group set up to look into our strategy that's not been looked at since, I think, 2008. So that's a different piece of work that could result in a different outcome than the national one. So that's just the other thing to bear in mind. I think that is relevant to the question that you did ask. Councillor Cruikshanks is looking to come in.
Thanks, Convener. Could I ask Mr Daly about the effectiveness of speed-activated signs and speed camera signs, and whether this is something that we could consider here in the interim?
Convener, I would invite my colleague again, Andy Barnes, who is more knowledgeable on this subject. And I think, Andy, just if you could share your knowledge and experience of light-activated signs, please.
Thanks, Graham. Yes, they do potentially generate maybe a reduction of 1 or 2 miles an hour, probably at most, I would suggest. It's something that could be, if the speed limit was reduced to 30, there would be a risk that traffic would not obey that speed limit, and then the council would have to go back in and add additional measures, such as variable message signs. But as I say, that you may only obtain a reduction of 1 to maybe less than 5 miles per hour for such signs. It would really need more detailed intervention to create a larger drop in speeds than that. Thanks.
Convener, yeah, just to add what Andy's just advised, I would just highlight again that the speed, and in the report there's a table that shows that we have on a number of years carried out speed surveys, and they've consistently shown that in terms of compliance with the 60-mile speed limit, there's not anything of concern or any different from other areas. So therefore, in terms of the requirement or the justification merit for putting in the speed-activated signage, there isn't the evidence base for us to do that. I think what my colleague Andy has just mentioned there was, in the event you were to go to 30, I think it's very likely that we would not get compliance with that. And I think speed-activated signage, I would suggest, wouldn't be sufficient either. And you're looking at far more expensive, perhaps, engineering solutions to do that. And I think part of the issue why we're doing the speed limit review in Angus is that consistency in approach, because we have many locations across Angus that if not identical, are similar?
We have a record amount of people in this committee looking to speak. So we'll just run through the list. We've got Councillor Scott, Councillor Devine, Councillor Cowdery, Councillor Whiteside, Councillor Proctor. So we'll go Councillor Scott.
We're still on questions, convener, aren't we?
That's right, yeah.
Thank you. Right, at the risk of sounding like Daft Lassie here, if I ever get on a bus, I get on the bus in the town. So I actually wouldn't have known that you hail at the other side rather than stand on the verge. I probably would have been standing on the verge. So how many other people don't know that? And also, probably I would have concerns about that. That must be terrifying, given that I know the increase in traffic that we've had since straightening the road so that it was easier access to the Port Authority and the size of vehicles that do come past. So again, yeah, I would probably share my concerns about people standing at that bus stop. Thank you.
I'll just repeat what I said earlier, is that we've already given a commitment to discuss what practical steps we can take with the bus regarding the bus stop with the local representatives, and take in essence, Councillor Scott, of the points you've made there.
Yeah, I totally agree. You're still getting off the bus on that side, so it's still an issue. Councillor Devine.
Well, thanks. Mine's a very quick question, and that's when is this member officer group going to start up? Because Mr Mackey has given us a very clear idea of the difficulties in that area, and I would hope that this would be looked at quite quickly.
Yeah, quite an easy answer as well to that one is that we'll have dates in the diary for and with the first meeting happening at the beginning of next month, so very soon.
Councillor Cowdery.
Thank you. Mine was adjacent to that, which is one general, one specific. I will be quick. When will that actually conclude? And we will have a policy which we can then implement, because I'm obviously, the start of the process is great, but the end of the process would be better. And second, in the report on page 9, it says that any change to the speed limit is likely to affect the function of the bus stop. If you could just explain why that is, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, in terms of the member officer working group, there isn't a target date or timescale set, but I think it's been said that when it was discussed at the time, there's an acknowledgement that there is an expectation will try and be as expedient in terms of how we take this forward. What was said when it was discussed at the committee was that the priority was around our policy on 20 mile an hour within the urban setting, so that's what we've taken a commitment to prioritise first. But I think we all recognise that we'll try and reach a conclusion as quickly as we can. In terms of your query around the change in the speed limit, I think, again, Ian, you might not need to Ian, my colleague Ian Leith might want to add, but might not, is that my understanding is that it was already referenced by Councillor Scott how quickly vehicles, if you're standing on the verge side, and vehicles are how fast vehicles are driving past. Also, taking into account hail and ride situations, I think the speed limit is therefore relevant if you're standing on a verge side, or the distance where you stand, because where we do have hail and ride situations tend to be on 60 mile an hour zones.
Sorry, can I just come in and get a bit more clarity on that? I guess I was asking, why would it be difficult to use the bus stop if there was a speed reduction? So I understand that it's currently dangerous to use the bus stop in certain circumstances because there isn't a speed reduction, but if you could just plumb down a bit more into that. Thank you.
Sorry. Yes, so I think my understanding is your concern around if we reduce the speed limit. Sorry.
Sorry, yeah, I'm just going to find it in the report. It's page 9 at 6.4. Any change to the speed limit is likely to affect the function of the bus stop. So I just wanted to know why that is the case. If it was reduced, the current bus stop, the way it operates at the minute, why would that affect the function of it?
Again, I'll invite my colleague Ian in, who maybe will answer this better, but I think perhaps just to try and convey that in a better way, what we meant by that was that the function is affected by how fast the vehicles are going, where how far you stand back to shelter that is required by that. Apologies if maybe it hasn't been conveyed in quite the right way to be understood correctly, but I will, just in case, I might have covered things, Ian, but just in case you are sitting there and would like to add anything to that, Ian.
Yeah, thanks, Graham. Happy to add a little bit more detail. By putting a stop in that location, what we have done is invite people to stand at it. And that's why in locations such as this, we normally wouldn't put infrastructure. We would normally designate a hail and ride zone, and that means that people could stand at a location that they felt was safe for them, stand a distance back from the traffic. There's reasonable sight lines around Balwillow cottages, which allows people to see buses approaching and then hail them. If the speed was reduced, what that would potentially lead us to do would be to put physical stops in place, potentially on both sides of the road. But then what that does is invite passengers to stand at that specific location, and that means that from their dwelling or whether they've been at the football pitch or elsewhere, they then have to make sure that they get to that specific pick-up and drop-off point, whereas the hail and ride point allows them to stand at the best location for them and allows then the bus driver to take into consideration the road conditions as he's approaching the passenger and pull over at a safe location.
Councillor Whiteside.
Thanks, convener, and thanks for coming along, by the way. I'm sympathetic to the issues raised by the people filling in the petition, and indeed on my way home I'll pass many similar bus stops. The road leading to where I live is the same, but it's difficult to see how it could be easily rectified. Even going through some of the villages, there's a verge on one side and there's a bus stop on one side of the road that is on a verge. However, it's concerns like these that have caused the review to happen and the member officer group to be set up to look at it. And I'm just concerned that we made too many individual decisions rather than having a consistent approach through the results of the member officer working group. So just ask Mr Daly if that's a concern for him as well.
Yes, I think you've outlined that quite well, Councillor Whiteside. The difficulty we have got is that we will be taking ad hoc decisions and leading to inconsistencies. And I know, speaking with our roads professionals, one of the issues is that from a driver's perspective, if there is that inconsistency on the road network, in some ways it isn't helpful in terms of compliance with the actual speed limit. So again, we've heard the excellent deputation today, and we'll consider that part of the speed limit review, that how do we address these concerns across the board within Angus. But yes, if we're not careful, we will be making very ad hoc decisions, and they do have implications. We mentioned there that this bus stop, there's circa 800 similar bus stops in Angus, and we need to take that into account and look at this a bit more holistically, I would suggest.
Okay, so we've got Councillor Proctor, then Councillor Brace.
Thank you very much, convener. It's one really for Mr Barnes. I noticed on page 7, table 5.7, showing you the list of speeds in that area, and you can actually see there's a general increase in speed in the last time I checked, according to the table, was one carried out in September 2024, where the average speed was 62 miles per hour. I know our speaker sort of said up to 70, and sometimes speed can be deceptive if you're standing on the side of the road. But, you know, it's recorded as 62, and that's gone up from 59 in August 2011 Now, wouldn't it be worthwhile maybe carrying out a further, speed check in that area, just to determine, accurately what the speed of the motorists or vehicles are on that particular road, to help us to make a good and accurate decision.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Proctor. Just to correct you if I may there, that's the 85th percentile speeds, not the average speed. So the average speed was 53, not 62. And you'll see that, so that survey was carried out in September 24, which was right after when the petition was received. So that is up-to-date information in terms of the speeds on that road. Thanks.
Thanks for that. But is it not worthwhile maybe doing another one? I mean, this is now February, almost March 2025.
I think you can see from that list that, as you said, so the 85th percentile speed has gone up by 3 miles an hour, but that's over 13 years.
Yeah.
So you've got 1, 2, 3, you've got 5 years worth of information to go on there within the report. So no, I don't think any further information is required.
Okay.
Thanks.
And the last point I'd just like to make, you said that you didn't think that the speed signs, the electronic signs make much difference. Well, certainly I drive in Perth and Kinross a lot, and I do notice where there is a proliferation of these signs. I think that the drivers do respond to them. So I think that's another thing which was put up by one of my colleagues here, which should also be considered. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, Councillor Brace.
Yes, I'm going back to the bus stopping bit again. I've maybe missed it in the papers, but I don't see anything that's telling me how wide the verge is for any potential bus stop that we might want to put in at the other side, or standing area. Do we have a figure? If not, maybe Mr. Mackey would be able to give me a rough idea.
The appendix in the option appraisal, it did reference that if there was more a substantial bus stop, that from memory it says that we would need to do some form of land acquisition. There isn't sufficient space that we have access to, so on the verge side. So in terms of if it was something more substantial, I would just reference the appendix, is that the likelihood is that we would need to try and acquire some land, but also we need to consider some design work as well in terms of how that would look.
And so I'm assuming then that you're saying that there's not enough space between the edge of the road and the ditch.
I'll invite, I'm sure that's the case, but I'll invite again my colleague Mr. Barnes just to confirm that's the case.
Yeah, thanks, Graham. Yeah, hi, Councillor Brace. Yeah, I've just measured on the map. It's approximately 3 metres wide, the verge at that point. So you'd be looking for 3 to 3.5 metre for a bus bay, and I think there's a change in level behind the hedge. So pretty sure that additional land would be required for us to fit a bus lay-by in at that location. Thanks.
Okay, that's fine, thanks.
Okay, we're still on questions. Is there anybody not spoken that wants to ask a question? Councillor Fotheringham, you sure? All right, we'll move on to comments then. Any comments on this one? Councillor Brace.
Yes, thanks, Convener. I am very sympathetic to the people who live round about Bulwilo and have this very fast piece of road going through them in front of their doors. However, I have been selected to sit on this review member officer working group looking into this whole area. I'm looking forward to getting started to that very shortly, and I really don't see how there could be any great need for this member officer working group not to be coming back to committee or council really quite quickly. I don't see how it's going to take months after month after month to come to a conclusion on our strategy for dealing with situations like this. So I don't think there's any danger of this being kicked into the long grass and forgotten about. What we do about the bus stop and the bus hailing, etc., that's maybe another matter. Thanks.
Any further comments? Councillor Cowdery.
Thanks. Just coming off the back of Councillor Bray's comment, I mean, I'm concerned, I understand why there isn't an end date for the Member Officer Working Group to come to conclusions, but I'm concerned that understandably worried residents are kind of looking down a timeline without an end. So if there is any way we could set an end in advance so people know that within a reasonable period of time with an end date, at least that we can have some conclusions, I think that would be my minimum ask. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cowdery. Councillor Stewart.
Thanks, Convener. Yeah, I just wanted to say that, I mean, I disagree with the officer's view on the speed activated signs because, like Councillor Proctor, I'm all over the country, and especially when I go into neighbouring places like Perthshire and whatever, the speed activated signs that they actually use out there are different to the ones that we tend to use in Angus, and for what reason I don't know. I think they're more when you're approaching ones down in Perthshire, they actually flash up red with whatever speed you're doing, and that speed drops as you drop your speed. And once you get to the correct speed or within the limits, it changes to green. And you know, when you're driving along these roads, and if it's flashing up red that you're going too fast, and you've got vehicles behind you, you're actually, well, I'm embarrassed. And I want to get down to the correct speed as quickly as possible. And I just think that that would be a better fit if we had these ones in Angus rather than the ones that just flash and tell us what the speed limit is for the area. I think they're more effective. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stewart. And we can maybe take that into the MOG. Councillor Duff.
Yeah, thanks, Convener. I think we are setting up the group to look at a consistent policy, and I think Councillor Whiteside hit the nail on the head there with her comments further back, or question. The danger, if we're not consistent, is we're going to continually get groups coming to committee saying, you've gone for X mile per hour here, we're the same, we should be the same. So I think it's really important that we have a consistent policy. If we were to agree to put 30 in here, if I lived in North Craigo, which is a larger settlement than Balwilo, I would be saying, why is that 40? And I think it's better to do it once and try and get it as near right as possible. If we make a decision here today, we're setting a precedent, and the group hasn't yet met, and I think we need to try and do it consistently. We've set the group up with a good reason. I think, like Councillor Brays, I'm completely sure that this robust body that's going to look at this will recommend reduction in the speed limit from 60, notwithstanding the national review. The only question for me is what's the appropriate speed limit, and I don't want to prejudge what that committee thinks, but I think we set a process up. We should follow the process and try and look at the whole of Angus on a consistent basis, so we have a clear set of rules. And yes, the bus stop issue is a separate issue. Perhaps we need to divorce the two.
Thank you, Councillor Duff. Any other comments on this one? My final thoughts on it are thanks for the presentation. It's clear that our 2008 policy needs to be looked at, and that's the commitment that the MOG's looking to do. So the speed limits are very much on the agenda, and there's been multiple different areas who have come to us telling us they want their speed limits looked into. So it's kind of, again, my position is probably pretty clear. It's following the recommendations. But I just wanted to highlight as well the commitment that Graham's made, and to hold Graham to that commitment about looking and having a dialogue with the people that live in Balwilo about what the bus stop should actually look like, and if there is to be changes to that bus stop, what is needed. So there's a whole load of, although on the face of it, the petition, depending on how the committee votes, don't want to prejudge that, but reading the room a little bit, if the committee backs the officer's recommendations, that doesn't mean to say we're against looking at the speed limit in Bulwilo. It will just be taken in as the overall approach to Angus and how we look at settlements like Bulwilo, as officers have repeatedly mentioned, thousands across the area that have similar issues. They will also need to be looked at. So we've got that commitment. So we'll move to the recommendations. The recommendations in agenda item 4 are to note the receipt of the petition, to note the detail set out in the findings of the engineering investigations, to note the options appraisal in Appendix 4, to agree at this time to adopt option 1, do nothing, and to agree option 3A, which is do nothing, but with the commitment that officers will seek feedback. Are we happy to endorse all of the recommendations? Okay, thank you everybody. We move on to agenda item 5, the Bog Road Bridge Brechin. Okay, so we're on agenda item 5, Bog Road Bridge Brechin. Graham, you're introducing this report.
Thank you. The report details the previous committee decision to manage the long-term future maintenance of Bog Road Bridge Brechin and notes its current closure to vehicle traffic following a recent structural inspection. The committee is asked to approve the promotion of a permanent prohibition of driving order across Bog Road Bridge Brechin. Following this, a public consultation will commence and a further report will be brought to the committee if required in due course. Thank you.
Thank you, Graham. Any questions for Graham on this one? No questions. Any comments? No comments. Can't see any comments in the room. Okay, then we move to the recommendations 1 to 4, which are to note, approve, approve and instruct. Are we happy to endorse those recommendations? Okay. Excellent stuff. Right, we move to agenda item 6, which is the recycling rate of household and total waste generated. Graham, again, introducing this one.
This report presents information on household waste recycling rates and the total waste managed by Angus Council from 2019 to 2023. This is the most up-to-date information that has been verified and is available. The key reasons for changes in household waste recycling rates are outlined with some explanation in the report. I would highlight that Angus remains in the top quartile of Scottish local authorities for household recycling rates and, importantly, has one of the lowest recorded per capita carbon impact rates in Scotland. Thank you.
Thank you, Graham. Any questions on this one? Councillor Melville.
Thanks for that. And just so that I'm absolutely clear, is this measured on a calendar year basis or a financial year basis?
It's on a calendar year basis, and the reason for that is that we have to do a return to SEPA along with every other council in Scotland, and it has always been on the basis of a calendar year.
Councillor Cruikshanks.
Thanks, Convener. A few years ago, Angus had the best recycling rate in Scotland. We were number 1. Now we've dropped to 7th. I understand that recycling is now measured differently, but have all councils changed their approach in the same way? Or are we measuring things differently from other councils? If most councils have adjusted the same way, then this drop is a real concern. So what's the plan to get us back to number 1?
In terms of how we compare to other councils, I think there's 32 local authorities, as we know, in Scotland, and there's probably 32 different variations in terms of just how waste is collected. What we have done over those years is, as well as maintain a high recycling rate, we've actually lowered our cost of collection and cost of disposal relative with other local authorities. And it is the challenge we have around delivering an efficient but effective waste management system, and I'd like to think that that's something that we'll have achieved in Angus, and we continue to perform well in terms of recycling rate. In terms of being the best in Scotland, bear in mind, for example, we have a chargeable garden waste service, which many local authorities in Scotland do, but not all. Also, a big factor is in terms of the number of flatted properties you have. We have less flatted properties than urban areas, but there's other authorities who have even lower flatted properties. There's so many different dynamics in terms of what influence our recycling rate. We have, well, I said recently, we're still in the process, the final phase of the rollout of the revised curbside recycling service that we're rolling out has introduced a split recycling service, and one of the reasons was that we were delivering our mixed recycling to Northern Ireland, to Newry. The material, the paper and cards is now being delivered to Teeling, and the mixed recycling is going to Perth. And I mentioned about the carbon metrics and how we score well in there. So recycling rate is definitely important and measure. It is a statutory performance indicator that we monitor. I would just highlight, in addition to the fact that there's so many variations across all the councils, is that I believe that recycling rate is just one measure amongst others when we are assessing our performance as a council in terms of waste and recycling.
Councillor Cowdery.
Thanks very much. I just wondered if Mr Daly could comment on the possibility of plumbing down further into different areas of Angus. You mentioned the different types of property, and obviously you're going to have different types of property in urban and more rural areas. I'd like to get an idea of how we could maybe do a bit of encouragement or education on the areas that are particularly not as good. Thank you.
Yes, we don't have recycling performance measured by town or by council ward. I wouldn't go as far as saying it would be impossible, but definitely be challenging, because bear in mind our refuse collection vehicles, the routes sometimes extend beyond even different towns or different areas, and it is actually bulked before it's sent for the recycling. So it would be quite challenging to try and come up with a recycling rate. We do know we'll have pockets or areas where it is challenging to get compliance in terms of our policies around even just presentation of bins, and we do work hard with sometimes with housing colleagues or private landlords or directly with tenants and occupiers to try and improve performance. So yeah, it would be challenged to come up with a performance with data by area. But I think that in terms of, I'd like to think we'll already try and prioritise our resources to try and make improve where we are aware there are issues where recycling maybe isn't as high as it should be.
I think Councillor Cowdery might have read Councillor Whiteside's mind a little bit. Councillor Whiteside.
Thanks, Convener. Yeah, she has taken part of my comment. One thing I'm going to say, and sorry if I'm repeating myself, my usual caveat that getting the highest recycling rate isn't necessarily the best measure, because we are hoping that increasing awareness of the dangers of throwaway plastics, etc., that people will more and more start adopting reusable containers. And what we should be focusing on is reducing general waste and not necessarily worrying too much about the recycling figure. Obviously, we want to recycle everything that it needs to be recycled, and one area where we're maybe not doing as well as we could is in food waste. I know that a lot of areas don't see as many brown bins out for collection as they could be, so just wondering if a campaign around that might be useful.
You make a very good point regarding the food waste. We do have data in terms of participation. What we find is in terms of the curbside recycling, which is now the blue and the grey bins, it tends to be very good, and it's just maybe just trying to improve that. What we do know is that the participation in the food caddy is much lower, and from waste composition analysis that we've done of the general waste bin, the purple bin, is that around a third of the waste we collect is actually food waste that could be sent to it's an anaerobic digestion plant in Perthshire is where we send it. Now, it's just not an environmental issue, it's also a financial issue. It is incredibly cheaper for us to send the waste to the anaerobic digestion compared with residual waste treatment, and it's definitely an area where we hopefully can see improvement. I would add, we're not alone in Angus. When we speak to colleagues in other local authorities, it is a similar tale in terms of participation in food waste recycling being much lower.
Suzanne, are you looking to come in on the back of that?
Yes, if I could just to give Councillor Whiteside a wee bit further and hopefully some encouraging information, is that since we began the revised curbside recycling service changes, we have seen an increase of 177 tonnes between July and December 2024, which is quite significant because the yearly amount of food waste that we've been collecting has been declining since 2016. You know, every year we've seen a decline. So this is the first year that we've actually seen an increase on the previous year. So that is quite heartening. And also the food waste is a national issue. There is a strategy for Scotland which highlights that it's a very complex issue, and if in fact we are getting it right, people should be reducing their food waste. We should be encouraging them to use up their leftovers, not buy so much, etc., etc. So there are a lot of things to consider, but just wanted to highlight that we have increased our tonnage, and that yes, we agree that the capture of food waste is extremely important and something that we will look to focus on going forward.
Thank you.
Do you mind if I just come back quickly?
Very quickly.
Suzanne, do you think we're making enough use of communal food waste collection points for perhaps people that live in flats where there's not enough lot of space?
I would say that we haven't cracked that yet. It's a very, very tough nut to crack. Unfortunately, we find in the many different places that we've tried it that and unfortunately it is invariably contaminated to such a degree that it just it becomes unviable. But I am investigating some different types of bins that we might be able to use going forward to give those that want to recycle the opportunity to do so.
Thank you, Suzanne. Councillor Scott.
Not really a question, convener, but well, maybe actually I'll throw one in. Thank you. Just, do you know, we do food recycling. I get a lot, obviously Brechin and Edzell has a lot of rural areas and they don't get the food caddy option. So is there any opportunity to expand collection of food waste? But also when I've been shocked recently because out of a straw poll out of my friends, we're the only ones that use the food recycling and the caddy, and none of them actually have food waste bins. I don't know why, but they don't. So are they able to get them if they phone the access line?
Yeah, the good news is that the phase 3 of the curbside revisions are happening, as Graham said, just now. The rollout to Brechin is actually taking place this week. So, and then rural areas over the next couple of weeks. So there will be many more households in more rural areas. We're not going up the Glens, we're not going as far as that, but there will be the opportunity for many more households to receive the food waste service. Sorry, I've forgotten the second comment.
Just the amount of my friends that don't have
how to get one.
Bin.
Yeah, so we've seen a significant increase in requests for caddies since we started rolling out, and obviously we are also we'll be sticking in purple bins. It's happened in some areas, but it'll take us a bit of time to get through all households. Sticking in purple bins to show, look, you can't put your food waste in here. You need to use your caddy. The same with the other recyclables that we collect. So that is making an increase, and we've had a massive amount of requests for caddies to be delivered, and residents can either go online, there's a wee forum, they can easily order a caddy there, or they can phone the access line.
Okay, that's really good news, thank you.
Thank you.
That 100% was a question, Councillor Scott. Councillor Stewart.
It may come as a surprise to some of you, but you heard it here first. There's no food waste in the Stewart household. Absolutely zero. All goes down my throat. One thing that I wanted to say about the food waste was, in particular, the caddies. I've had a lot of constituents complain to me about them getting knocked over by seagulls, even when they're putting, you know, they'll maybe put a block on top of it to stop the seagulls getting in about. They just knock the caddy over and then burst through the bag. So there's a lot of food waste, you know, strewn about. Another thing I wanted to ask was about the penalties for households that are not going to be recycling correctly. How do we plan to work that, and what would be in place, you know, to actually impose these penalties on people?
Convener, can I suggest Suzanne answers the first question, at least on seagulls, because I know she's answered many a question about seagulls and bins blown over. So,
well,
over to you, Suzanne.
The good news is that our caddies are lockable. So the handle moves up and down, and as long as the resident just pops the lid down and pops the handle up, then the caddy will lock, and no seagull is going to be able to unlock that caddy.
And just the second part of your question, Councillor Stewart, about penalties for households. Legally, in terms of a fixed penalty notice, there isn't, in terms of not recycling or contaminating your bins. We don't have the capacity to do that. However, when we introduced the revised curbside recycling service, given the ease in which you can recycle at the curbside and the importance both environmentally and financially to do so, we did communicate the policies that our operatives will spot check and look at bins, and if there is excessive contamination, and that includes if there's recycling, say cardboard boxes going into the purple bin, that we will not collect it. It was a little bit of a change of mindset, because it's always been the case we don't empty a recycling bin if there's black bags in there, but we were saying, well, actually, if we have a general bin that's just full of recycling, we're not going to collect that either. What we have done is we've tried to be pragmatic in terms of how we're, you know, and not overzealous in terms of how we apply that, in terms of we try and engage with the householder, and we try and spread, you know, awareness, education about why we feel it's important for it to participate. But ultimately, we do have a policy that if households just point blank are not making any effort to recycle, then the policy is that we will not empty the residual bin. So in a way, it could be interpreted as a penalty.
And that, can I just come back in there, Convener, please?
On you go, to Councillor Stewart.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I agree with what you're saying, but we have problems, and I'm sure it's the same all over Angus. I get it regularly in Montrose, and I'll use the term people with chaotic lifestyles. They just throw stuff in any old bin, and if their bin doesn't get emptied, they'll start just using someone else's bin, their neighbour's bin, and just throwing stuff in, and all the bins are getting contaminated, and then obviously we're not lifting it, so we've got a pile of bins that are full and no getting emptied until, say, a councillor or whatever raises the issue, and then we end up having to go out and sort it out eventually. But it's just, you know, we've got bins. There's one location in Montrose just now, and I passed there this morning, and there was bins were just overflowing, and they were all contaminated. The tickets on them, that they're not getting lifted. So I don't know how we deal with that, but it's just that I think that just adds to the problem.
I would say that you're quite correct. There are problem locations. Thankfully, this is very, very much the minority. And as already been highlighted, I think we can be proud of our recycling performance. And I think, you know, we appreciate that the public of Angus, you know, perform well as a whole. In terms of those locations, Councillor Stewart, is that, as I said, we do, you know, try and be pragmatic in terms of we apply this, and we do try and engage with the householders. It's really a case-by-case assessment, because sometimes it's communal bins where it's hard to identify where the waste is coming from. There are challenging locations. As I said, the policy does exist where we can identify that someone isn't using the bin properly, that we will not collect it. I think it is something that is just going to continue, and we'll continue to put the resource in there and engagement with the householders to try and improve the situation.
Okay, any further questions on this one? Nope, we move to comments then. Councillor Merber.
Yeah, thanks. And it's actually just further to some of the discussion that Councillor Stewart and Graham have been having about the pragmatic approach to penalties. And I just want to assure Councillor Stewart and any other councillors from areas where this has not yet been rolled out. During the initial phase of the rollout in Monifieth, there were significant teething problems with people not getting their bins emptied, and my inbox was absolutely full. And I spent rather a lot of time annoying both Graham and Suzanne about that. And I have to say that the pragmatic approach that was taken by our waste team, further to that, by Graham, by Suzanne, has really, really improved the situation. And I just want to assure you that the approach that is now being taken by the Council is one that I certainly have a lot of confidence in, and I've not had any further complaints or anything like that from any constituents. So I hope that provides some assurance.
Okay, any comments? Are there further comments? Nope. Right, we'll move to the recommendations. The recommendations are to note the information relating to households. Do we know that? Okay, thanks everybody. That is the end of this Communities Committee meeting. Thank you.
Hi John, can you stop the live stream?